1980, for a very personal reason that I'm not sure if I want to divulge on YouTube, is a very important year for me in music. You know, just to investigate some of the things that I've been personally interested in. And when investigating the general amount of vinyl that I hadn't put in a number of my other videos that were more genre-based, I realized that the pop music landscape of 1980, despite some of the issues were going on then, a recession in the American music industry in particular, was that the year in music, even on the pop and rock side, was actually pretty eclectic. And so I have 20 albums here that kind of represent that from the year 1980. And a lot of these are recent purchases, actually. The first one is an album I've been looking for a long time, and that's the J.Geils band, Love Stinks, R.I.P. J.Geils. Really good and diverse album. It has the title track, which is definitely a heavy guitar rocker. There's a lot of new wave elements coming into this album by this particular time. There's a lot of imagery out of the 50s and early 60s on this, including the album jacket. There's even a custom label with the J.Geils band handprint on it. And that's it. Joan Armatrading. She's somebody, I think I've said this before in one of my videos. Joan Armatrading's albums can be found where I am in just about every dollar bin you could think of. There seems to be an overload of people who want to get rid of her music. I get this impression that this West Indian artist who was British-based, and a lot of people may not have been ready for a husky-voiced, female, British, black rock star in the early 1980s, and this is essentially what this album gives you. Talented singer-songwriter. Show you some of the pictures on the inside. Just because you're not familiar with her records, if you ever see them, totally worth getting. This was actually given to me as a repeat by my boyfriend Scott. The Jacksons, Triumph. I am not sure. I'm thinking of doing a separate vinyl review segment on individual albums, and I've reviewed this on Amazon from the point of view of the CD. This is one of my favorite albums of all time. You know, Michael Jackson in general, and the Jacksons being among my favorite artists of all time, just because of how they were able to gather together all the great session people to appear on this album. I'm not going to do too much commentary on this because I could go on and on forever. Triumph is really a fantastic album. It sort of bridges the off-the-wall and thriller periods. I've had this on CD twice, and actually this is my second time having it on vinyl, and I think it's been in another video, so I'm not going to go too much into that. Pat Benatar. Crimes of Passion, another album my boyfriend gave me from his doubles collection. I actually have this on CD already, but you know, it's got You Better Run, the Rascals cover, it's got Hit Me With Your Best Shot on it. This is really from her prime period in the 80s. The Tubes, The Complete Backwards Principle. I turned down this album a number of times and finally found it in a way in which I was comfortable. Regular capital label. Dolly Parton, Dolly. get an album by her from the late 70s as a soundtrack, and actually really get into Dolly's pop period, which had a lot of disco and rock elements to it, and that's what this album is too. It's got a lot of those elements to it too. It's a great album from that period of her career on RCA. Orchestral Manoeuvres in the Dark. This is their first album. I got this at a store that usually sells musical instruments, but if you look at the top, it's got an HMV sticker. It's still on the album. £3.49. I don't know, the label might be kind of unique on this one. I'm not sure. It is. It has a custom green virgin label, manufactured in the UK. So this is a UK pressing of this album. I believe it's their first, later to become abbreviated to OMD, of course. One of the early new waves acts on Top of the Pops, from what I understand. Now we have Rockpile, Nick Lowe, Seconds of Pleasure. Well, Nick Lowe and Dave Edmunds, Billy Bremner, and Terry Williams. This is kind of a one-off project, actually. It even has their touring schedule on the back, on the bottom. I haven't heard this album yet. It's on Columbia. Looking forward to hearing it. I've really gotten into Nick Lowe in the past several years, and it's interesting to hear what he comes up with as an artist. Melissa Manchester, you know, she's an artist that I had kind of pegged wrong, and it's because of albums like this. A lot of Melissa Manchester records veer more toward up-tempo new wave, like Hey Ricky, or even an album like the one that has, I can't think of the name of it, Don't Cry Out Loud on it, is kind of jazz-funk oriented. And even her newest album, You Gotta Love the Life, is that way. But this is an album that is filled with very torchy ballads, and that's always what I thought Melissa Manchester was as an artist. It's good, though. It's just kind of how I stereotyped her sound. Something I probably shouldn't have done. She's a very diverse artist. Adam and the Ants, Kings of the Wild Frontier. I've been getting into a lot of Adam Ant music of lately. This is their 1980 album. In some quarters, I've heard this actually considered their best. The album actually should be in here, so I have to reset that, but it's on the Epic label. Guilty, Barry Gibb and Barbra Streisand. You know, I'm very selective with Streisand. You know, I have only about 4 or 5 records by her, and 2 of them on vinyl. And you know, she's good with certain things and not with others, but this is really good material because it's with Barry Gibb, and he really knew how to write for her. Kind of an interesting period going from disco to pop, basically. The Rolling Stones, Emotional Rescue. That's on here, and so is another song called Dance Part 1, which is kind of a funky thing. But this album is your pretty straight-ahead Stones rocker type album. I know that a lot of people give this album a lot of flack, as this is about the worst things the Rolling Stones ever did. But it's just, this is their sound, you know, and I mean, for the most part, the Rolling Stones really did better when they were kind of being a little more experimental. Undercover in the Night is a great example of this. So that's a really good, actually, you know what? I was going to show you the Rolling Stones record label, but you've already seen that. It's Some Girls in another video. It's a little Rolling Stones record lip tongue. You've already seen Auto American in another video. Don't need to go through that again. Blondie. Andy Gibb. This was unfortunately the last album he made. I actually have all of Andy Gibb's albums now. But here's Andy Gibb. What's cool about this is it actually comes with this order form for photographs, t-shirts, a framed picture, all this stuff right here. I think Andy was painted as more of the teen idol end of the whole Gibb brothers group. There's some of the people who played on this album. Again, an RSO record, same label as his older brothers, the J.Geils. Shaun Cassidy, another teen idol whose career in 1980, again, this is his last album, he's a producer now, actually took a very interesting turn. On this album, he was actually produced by Todd Rundgren and Utopia. So this is basically a totally different sound for Shaun Cassidy. I haven't heard all of this album yet, but I am looking forward to it. The Cars, Panorama. This album may have actually been or not been in another video before. It's been reissued with some bonus tracks. Nothing especially interesting from what I hear. But there's The Cars at that time. This has the song Touch and Go on it. Was the big single. I don't think it was considered the band's best album as it went together, but you know, still a great record from The Cars. Ambrosia, 180. This is one of my favorite Ambrosia albums. Great popish soft rock album. I refuse to use the name corporate rock because I don't like the type of people, frankly, that we have to thank for that particular term, so I'm just not going to use that. The Tapes. This is an album that I actually bought today, and I had an odd history with this record. The first time I ever heard about it was on a list of truly terrible album covers, and I think you can kind of see why. I mean, even my reaction looking at this album was that, you know, these tapes, this duo are having a party. It doesn't look like much of a party to me, but, you know, when I listen to this album, I totally get the point. This is, well, they call it post-punk, but it's actually a very funk-driven form of new wave. They describe it close to the Talking Heads, and that's not a bad way to describe it, except with very oddball and somewhat satirical lyrics. So I think the idea of calling an album Party with people who look bored and dressed in skinny ties is part of the joke. It's on Passport Records, a label usually known for a lot of jazz releases. And it's actually got the original insert. Really good album, actually. I just love the use of their name. Actually, they're not a duo. There are 4 people in the group. They're just 2 different people on each side. It's apparently a very boring party. But anyway, that's the back cover, and this is the front cover. And I like how they put the songs on side 1, side 2 on the back. It's a really great idea. Great album. I would recommend seeking this out. This is really very good. ABBA, Super Trooper. You know, ABBA are what they are. They are a polka pop band, basically, from overseas. And they were the band of the late 70s, as far as the pop world was concerned. And this album came out in 1980. These were master songwriters, ABBA, really, at the end of the day. This isn't a bad album. Their albums tend to flow together very well because they understand how to variate their sound just perfectly. Barry Manilow. I believe this is his first album of the early 80s. He actually has a song on here with the late Maurice White from Earth, Wind & Fire called Only in Chicago. It's on the Arista label, and I don't think I need to show you that, but that's that album. Actually, there's another picture of Barry Manilow there. You all know what he looks like and looked like then. Anyway, so that's what I've got for 1980. And I want to thank a number of my friends out there in the VC, Doug, Noah, Lou, over at Daddy Sensei Silver, and I also want to thank my friends Henrique, Ben, Minnotte over at Oddity Archive, who are also really into vinyl, and you know, I hope the rest of you enjoy these videos, and there'll be videos for 1981 and 82 and going up through the decade back into the 70s at some point soon. Not really sure when, but enjoy this one for now. Enjoy your music. Peace.